I was in Indianapolis, actually, the last day I was there, I was self-quarantining because I was coming from the Philippines. The last day I hit, when I was leaving the courts, the janitors, it was a high school, they were zip tying the doors shut. And I was like, actually, it's a good time to leave now.
Exactly.
I mean, I don't know where I would go. So
yeah.
Crazy time.
Yeah. As a pro athlete, kind of as these things were all developing and there's a lot of uncertainty involved, how hard was it for you to kind of accept that? Because we all kind of course, thrive on control and certainty of things. And this is a time of so much not having control of things and so much uncertainty. Yeah,
it was tough more because multiple reasons. One is, I mean, I've been traveling the world since 2009. Last year, I traveled like 37 weeks in 2019. So it was more like, where am I going to base? Where am I going to, because I really not anywhere. I'm usually on the road. So it's just like, what's my schedule going to be like? What am I going to do for practice? Like, what am I going to do? I mean, tennis is different and there's not guaranteed money. We need to play to earn money. So it's just like, how am I going to earn a living? So it was a lot of questions there that I'm still trying to figure out, but it's obviously uncertain times, but we're trying to make adjustments. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I saw you put out a post that you're kind of offering some coaching services and stuff during that time. Is that something you've done in the past before? Do you have a lot of experience doing coaching with tennis?
Yeah. A couple years after, like a year kind of into playing professionally, I didn't have a lot of funding. So I was actually coaching part-time at the club in my town in order to earn money to travel. So I did that for a whole year, and then I started doing better. My ranking went up, and luckily I was able to find a sponsor that helped me, and that's been helping me, which was great. But yeah, I've had a lot of experience. I have a lot of interest in it too, because I know I've always liked it. So, and it's something I think I definitely do after I'm done playing. But yeah, I think I'm going to get back into it because, I mean, we're not going to be playing for the next few months. So I'm kind of looking forward to that a little bit for sure.
Yeah. Is it mostly kids you're coaching, or is it more like, it could be like junior players or maybe other adult players?
I think I'm going to try everything. I mean, in the past, I've done kind of a mix of juniors and adult players, but honestly, in my area, I'll coach whoever wants to do it. I have obviously all the time in the world now, so I'm open to whatever,
Yeah, it's obviously the physical part of tennis is pretty obvious, things to work on and stuff. But when you're coaching, maybe say junior players or kids in that kind of age range, are there kind of mental parts of the game that stick out to you that you feel like you have to work on a lot with those types of players?
Yeah, tons. I mean, it's everyone struggles with different things at different moments. And I'm sure when I was a teenager, 15, 16, I had the same kind of thoughts in my head that maybe as an adult player, as a professional player, that you don't struggle with as much, like maybe worrying about rankings or what people think about if you win or lose this match, those type of things. And yeah, I would love to kind of use my experience to help younger players kind of overcome those things, because I had a lot of good coaching growing up and other people helped me. So I feel like to give that back would be great.
Yeah, the worry about other people think is something that I still struggle with a lot myself when I play tennis. Like at the club I'm at, if they'll do like a round robin play or whatever, and I lose a match, I hate seeing that score on the wall. I don't even want to go fill it in. I just want to walk away from it as soon as possible. It's the worst thing. For sure. I think everyone deals with that in their own way, and some people put more energy into it than others, and then some don't put any. So I think that's just how your personality is, Yeah, if you feel like you had a bad game, how do you begin the process of getting over it and looking towards the future? Because I think for a lot of people, they might either shut down after a bad game or they want to forget about it. But with a lot of the kids that I talk to from a mental side, the perspective, I always try and teach them not to forget about your mistakes, but to accept them. Easier said than done, of course. But kind of walk me through a bit about your process of after a loss or a tough game, how you overcome it and work towards it.
So my coach who helps me now has his master's in sports psychology. So kind of one of the things that we do is, even if you play like your worst match, there's definitely some things that you did okay. There's no way that every single thing you did was bad.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to acknowledge those things, even if you lose or you think you played a bad match. So I usually start out by writing like 10 things I thought I did particularly well, or like a point here or there, a point here. Like, I actually did this the way that I was supposed to. And then after that, writing down 3 things that I think I could do better. And obviously that list can be more than 3 things, but you want to keep it a little bit smaller, just so 1, you can be more precise, and 2, it's like you're not just pinpointing every single thing you did wrong, because you could honestly do that, and I could pick out, I'm very hard on myself, I could pick out 50 things, and if I just focus on that, then you don't, I feel like you don't grow as much. You're just thinking about, I did this wrong, you know what I mean? So
yeah, that's something I find too with a lot of, especially the younger athletes, is they can have do a lot of really good things right during a match. What, no matter what sport it is, but they always focus on those 1 or 2 things that they did wrong, right? And I always try and work with them. Like, you got to write down the things that you want to work on, of course, but also write down the things that you did well, so that you're not kind of putting yourself down and doubting yourself.
For sure. And confidence comes down a lot to kind of like what you tell yourself. Mm-hmm. Like, if you're just telling yourself everything you do is wrong, I mean, you're not going to feel that great. And, confidence is a tricky thing. And I think you always want to be in one way or another building that. So it's like, if you're just pinpointing the wrong things, it's like, I don't see how the growth is going to happen.
Yeah. One thing, like, kind of on that line that I've learned, I read a book called The Inner Game of Tennis. And they have it is a really good book. And one of the things I really took away from it is, when you're like playing a match, and this, again, things we're talking about here, we're talking about in the context of tennis, but it applies to every sport in the world.
For sure.
They say not to look at things as good or bad. So don't say you had a good shot or a bad shot, or a good game or a bad game, but it's like, I like it or I didn't like it, or I want it or I didn't want it. And it kind of takes away a bit of the like value judgment towards it, right? And
for
me, that, like, the first day I did that, where I made a conscious effort to say after every shot, shot, I said whether I liked it or I didn't like it, instead of saying it was a good or bad shot. I noticed like such a huge spike in my game and my consistency and confidence. 100%. It was just really, really eye-opening.
For sure. That book is amazing. Like you said, it applies to like every sport. I know Pete Carroll like had all his players read those books or that book. And I think there's a lot of truth for sure. Yeah.
Another book that I picked up too more recently was, I think it's called Winning Ugly by Brad Gilbert.
Good book too. Yeah.
That's another good book.
Sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
I've been really, this whole kind of self-isolation thing. I've been really focusing on reading more sports psychology books and topics. And it's really eye-opening how much there is that you can work on, even if you can't work on the physical aspect of your game. Because I think for some 100%. People, the gym or their court gets shut down and they feel like they're stuck. They don't know how to improve, but there's so much with the mental side of the game that you can improve on. For
sure. I try to read 1 book every 2 weeks. So usually 2 books a month. And I only read books like that. Kind of like sports psychology, motivational type things. So yeah, if you ever need a list, man, I got a pretty good one.
I love that. Yeah.
For sure.
When did you start kind of getting into the mental side of things? Start really hammering down, like reading books, getting a sports psychologist and all this stuff?
In college, my coach growing up was a very good player. His name was Kelly Jones. He was number 1 in the world in doubles. And he's been my coach since I was 14 years old. And when I was in college, I think after my sophomore year, he took me to see Jim Lair. You know who that is?
No, I don't.
He's a pretty famous sports psychologist, especially for tennis players. He worked with like Agassi and some other guys too, but multiple really good players. And so I went to see him and had a couple sessions, and that's kind of started it. You know what I mean? And I remember at the time I had been really struggling. I was in college. It was my sophomore year. I had a really good freshman year. And then my sophomore year, I had some struggles. And then I went to see him, and I actually took the fall off just to play professional tournaments. And I made a lot of improvements. And a lot of it was kind of stemmed from the things that I talked about with Jim. And that kind of sparked my interest, because I always felt like throughout my tennis, I had a lot of physical ability, but something else has held me back, whatever that was, insecurity, worry, fear, all those things. So kind of diving into that, I thought was really interesting. And then when I finished college, when I didn't have to do formal schooling anymore, like no one forcing you to read, I was like, I got really into reading, you know what I mean? So trying to read this and that. And then you work with some other guys. I worked with some other sports psychologists and kind of taking what they've given me and making it my own. Because, some things maybe not work as well as other things. And then last year I was really struggling. And then who's coaching me now, this guy, Danny Uranus, who played at Hawaii, he had messaged me. He's like, hey, dude, I just got my master's in sports psychology. I know we've talked about maybe doing some stuff. So I started working with him and we started working in like October, I think, or September. And I really turned it around. And kind of since then, I've been kind of on an upward path and I felt really good. But yeah, I would say I've been reading for a long time now, maybe 10 years, but not even close to being where I want to be and trying to just grow every day like everyone else and just trying to be better. You know what I mean? I think that's when it comes down to it, the main message of all those things is trying to be better than you were,
Yeah, always looking a way to improve, because some people, I feel like they kind of maybe would get complacent. Like for you, I know you played at Illinois, right, for tennis, was it? Yeah,
yes.
so that's a D1 school for tennis. Some people might get there and be like, that's my goal, and now I can kind of take it easy a bit. Or people might go to the pro tour and say, this is my goal, I can take it easy now. And they might fail to keep coming up with ways to challenge themselves and improve. So I really think it's important for people to kind of understand that, even though you may reach to what you think is your full potential, there's always extra room to improve, always extra room to grow.
For sure. I think going along with that, expectation, you know what I mean? Expectation is a big thing. Like I feel like I've always had huge expectations for myself. And even though I think it's great to have dreams and you have to have them, because I think that in the end of the day, that's what motivates you. But what happened to me, I think sometimes is I was so fixated on these expectations, these dreams, that when I wouldn't reach them, I would be like really disappointed. If I'm not inching towards it, I'm so far, it's hard to see progress. So I think in the end of the day, you got to make sure that every day you're doing those things, that you're focused on the process. Obviously, that's pretty, it's a cliche, but it's so true. It's like you focus, what are you doing every day that's going to help you get there? And that's really what you have to focus on. Like the dream is great and you should have that, but it's really what comes down to is what you're doing every day,
Yeah, those like kind of like 2 or 3 small things you can do each day that are really easy to attain. And you look at it like a different analogy could be like 1,000-word essay or something that might be daunting to somebody, but if you break it up to like 100 words a day, then in 10 days you finish the essay, right? And it's kind of the same thing in sports. If you have a goal, you just work every day, a little baby step goal, and eventually you'll get to hopefully close to your dream.
For sure. And my coach has done a really good job while we've been in lockdown for the past month, giving me, all right, these are the drills we're doing this week. You have to reach this number. So I'm basically texting him every day if I'm reaching the number, and then we increase it. Then we change the drill. So this whole month I've been really focused on those things. I feel like one thing, it's made my game improve, and 2, it's like really keeping me focused, which is pretty tough right now because obviously we're not playing tournaments. So I think that's really important.
The other thing too, I've realized for this whole shutdown thing is the love and kind of like that kind of perspective of sports and the game of tennis for me specifically, because I was in the middle of playing and being coached in tennis and everything like that. And kind of, I didn't want to say I was taking it for granted before, but you almost don't know what you have until it's gone, that old cliche. And I didn't realize how much I relied on tennis day to day for like just overall mental health and just doing something you enjoy every day. And then once it's taken away and you can't get it back, it's really gives you a new perspective on how much it means to you. For sure.
And everything. I mean, like going to the movies, going to do this, going to do that. I mean, we all really didn't appreciate that to the degree I feel like that it's worth, because, it was one of those things that was a given. And now that it's been taken away, I'm like, I'd give anything to go to the movies.
Exactly.
I'd give anything to go to play a tournament. But obviously at some point it's going to be back. And I hope everyone is the same as me and you, that we appreciate it even more,
Yeah. You touched on a bit about how kind of maybe a couple of years ago or last year, you were going through some struggles. And then with that, the support of a sports psychologist, you're able to get through them. Are there kind of 1 or 2 struggles that really that kind of really stand out to you that you can pick out and kind of look back and say, I've really improved on that and I'm kind of happy where it's at right now?
Yeah, I would say a big part that I was struggling with is the year before I had achieved my highest ranking, like a few months before, or the year before I got to like 129 in the world in doubles. And I was like, I'm on my way up. You know what I mean? And then all of a sudden I'm losing more than I was before, and my rankings dropping, and just like, what is this all for? You know what I mean? I was even like messaging some people about coaching jobs. I remember I was like, man, maybe I'm just done. You know what I mean? Like maybe I can't get any better. And then so every match I played, it was like, God, I'm losing points here. Can't get the points here. It's like my mind was totally on the wrong thing. And once you become fixated on something, it's just a downward spiral, you know? So I feel like one big thing is figuring out why I play tennis and what my values are. Like, what do I really want from tennis? What do I really value? And once I made that clear, I was able to play freely because my mind wasn't so cloudy anymore. And once I made that clear, I started winning some matches, and then it was kind of like, you know, I started getting my confidence back. And then kind of since then, I feel like I've improved a lot. Like, I just feel like I wasn't getting better. You know what I mean? And the reason I wasn't getting it is because of what I was thinking about all the time. So
yeah,
it's funny how that works. You know,
it is funny how it works. It's almost like how you not thinking about it made you better at it. Like you not thinking about getting more points got you more points. And
exactly, 100%. It's like I hadn't won 2 match. It was like September, and I hadn't won 2 match. I hadn't made the semis of a tournament since like March. I'm like 6 months in later, and I'm just like, what is happening? And then we start working, and then all of a sudden I made a semifinal. Then I made a final. Then I won a challenger. Then I finaled a challenge. It was like one after another. It's like, like you said, I didn't focus on doing it, but because had my focus on the right things, all of a sudden it happened. You know what I mean? So, and it was funny, throughout my career, it's been like that. So I've been on a cycle of doing, like, thinking that I'm on the right path, and then somehow my mind drifting. But I think now we have a very good hold of grasp of what I need to do and the things that I need to be accountable for when I play tournaments to keep me on this path that I'm on now. So
are there kind of mental exercises that you do or use to kind of help yourself get past that? Or is it more so just having somebody as a resource and bouncing ideas off of them and kind of having those conversations is what made the difference, or maybe a combination of both?
It's definitely a combination of both. Like I got into meditation about 4 years ago. So I basically meditated every day for 4 years. I barely missed any days. And I feel like that's helped a lot as far as just balancing me off the court, because I feel like how you feel off the court a lot of times can mirror how you are on the court. You know what I mean?
100%.
At least for me. I mean, that's maybe not for everybody, but that's how I feel. So I feel like that's brought me a lot of balance. And then my coach Danny has really made it clear we're very big into values, what I value, because that's really, when you get older, you see it more than when you're younger, that what do you want out of this? And figuring out what that was, and then him keeping me accountable for that really helped. You know what I mean? And then, for me, a lot of it was, I have a lot of thoughts, and me being able to express it to someone even before a match, just to get it out, and then him helping me clear things up has really helped. Because sometimes you keep that in, and then you're thinking about it instead of, you got to let it out somehow. Me having an outlet to do that and then to clear things up has really helped. I feel like on the daily basis, especially during playing tournaments, because you're stressed. So sometimes you're just not thinking objectively. And then, he's done a very good job bringing me back to where our focus needs to be. What are we doing this match? You know what I mean? Not worrying about this or that. What do you want out of this match? And having that has obviously been really beneficial to me.
I like how you said how kind of things off court match on court, because as tennis players or athletes in general, we're not good actors. If we were good actors, we'd be movie stars or on the TV show, right? We can't hide what's going on in our personal life too much, what's going on in the court. Like, I feel like if you're very confident in your personal life, then you're very confident on the court. If you're maybe very timid in your personal life, you're more likely to be very timid on the court. And so it's really kind of interesting how the interaction of things you work on the court help in your personal life, and then things that you work on in your personal life help you on the court as well.
For sure. I think, and I totally agree. I feel like little things, like having your room, if you're a mess, like your room's a mess, you're going to be a mess all over the court. You're not going to be organized. You're not going to have your bag ready for your match. Like little things like that, you think, but that could be the 1 or 2% in the match. And that's the one that wins it for you, So it's like, how do you, at the professional level, the levels just aren't that different. So it's like, how are you going to bridge that gap? And little things like that matter. And for me, it matters personally too. You know what I mean? It's just trying to be the best that you could possibly be off the court, on the court is really important to me.
You mentioned how you've kind of gotten better at blocking things off and just kind of focusing on the match and what's ahead of you. I know I think it was a couple months ago I read where you had proposed to your then girlfriend, now fiance, after a match.
Yes.
How hard was it to block that out of your mind while you're playing your match?
It was funny because I knew in order for the plan to work, because I wanted to do it on the medal ceremony, I had to at least get a bronze medal. Mm-hmm. So I remember calling Danny and I was in a panic. I'm like, dude, what do I do if I don't win this match? Like, I won't be able to do it. He's like, honestly, it would suck, but you could figure it out. It's not like you're not going to propose to her either way. You just won't get to do it that way. But he's like, remember what you want out of this. And we went back to my values of all the things that I wanted to do in my career, as far as what I want to represent myself. And he's like, that's all you can really do. How are you going to represent yourself today? And that calmed me down. And actually, we played a really good match and we beat the team. And I was pretty relieved to win that match because of I got to do the proposal that way. But the biggest thing is I actually perform well. It's one thing to feel really tight and then you go out there and play tight. But I actually I felt a little nervous before, but I was able to play a pretty good level and we won. So I felt good that I was able to deal with that. Whereas it's even worse when you play tight and you lose, because it just, I feel like you lose twice. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And that was part of, you were playing for the Philippines team there, right? For that part?
Yes.
Talk to me a bit about if there's any change or difference in your emotions or the pressure you feel or your mentality of a match when you're representing your home country versus a professional match.
For sure. It's very different. I feel I've always loved the team environment. Like in college, I felt like I loved playing for the team. I always kind of thrived when there's big matches, and I always felt like I performed my best when there was there's a lot of stuff on the line. You know what I mean? Because I feel like you feel more accountable to everybody. I didn't feel that so much pressure. I just felt more energy. You know what I mean? Like we made the finals of NCAA team championships in 2007, and that's still one of the best weeks of my life, one of the most memorable ones. So I've always embraced that. So playing Davis Cup for the Philippines, representing Team Philippines in all the competitions that I've done, has always, I felt, brought the best out of me. So I think it's more of an energy thing. I feel more of a pump. I mean, it's kind of natural. You know, you're playing in front of more people. There's more, there's a team vibe. That's just a different energy than going to play a challenger and some random place when there's like 3 people watching. I mean, you still are pumped, but it's just a different type of energy, so.
Yeah. I think that's one of the more underrated aspects of the mental side of tennis is when you compare it to team sports, you have that team mentality where you can feed off the energy and kind of get hyped up after that and get that adrenaline rush. And as a tennis athlete, or if you kind of play any kind of solo sport, you're kind of responsible to that yourself for generating that adrenaline or that energy or matching what you kind of energy you want to what will help you perform the best. I think it's really just kind of underrated and maybe a bit underappreciated as well as kind of the mental struggles of playing a sport without a team around you.
For sure. No doubt.
One thing I'm really interested in, because this is something that I kind of struggle with myself still to this day when I play doubles tennis, is when I play doubles tennis, my worry isn't really too much about, making a mistake to myself really, or really costing a point for myself. It's my partner that I'm worried about. Like, what's he going to think? I don't want to let him down. Tell me a bit about it, kind of your experience playing doubles and your mentality of it. And if those kind of fears or worries ever came up for you, like you maybe got a bit too timid or shy with your strokes because you don't want to let your partner down, and maybe how you kind of got over that.
For sure. Honestly, I'm exactly like you. I like tennis. I've been playing tennis since I was 3 years old. And the reason why I liked it was because I was out there by myself. And like, if I screwed it up, it would only be about myself. You know what I mean? And I felt a little bit freer for that, because of that, I mean. And doubles is the same. I felt the same thing as you. It's like, I don't care about messing it up for myself. I feel like I'm messing it up for my partner. And what would happen is I'd end up playing less aggressive. And the problem is I'm an aggressive player. That's my game style, and that's how I play my best tennis. And kind of the way my coach explains, like, if you pull back because of guilt, then you're not bringing your best tennis forward. Then you're not doing what's best for the team, and you are letting him down in one way or another. That way, it's better to go be who you are and do what you're supposed to do. Be aggressive as you can be, and so your best tennis can come out, and the best results will happen for the team. And that, in turn, by focusing on yourself and doing it that way, the best possible outcomes will come out, instead of being timid and thinking that I don't want to mess it up. That's just going to make it worse. You know what I mean? So everyone's different cues, but I have basically kind of similar cues to every time I play that I'm grading myself on. And I know if I do that, it'll bring out the best for the team for sure.
Do you think your aggressive play style, it helps you more so in the singles realm of tennis or in the doubles realm? Is it more of an asset in which one? Or is it equally in both such an asset to you that when you feel like if you're able to kind of focus on your game in either one and be really aggressive, then that's how you kind of play to your full potential?
For sure. I think it's equal in both, but I think it rewards you a little bit more in doubles just because the points are quicker. It's not about long rallies. It's about being aggressive. It's about first strike. It's about serving and returning. So that style is typically the ones that dominate the big tournaments in doubles. So I think it could reward you more, but it also would bring out my best singles tennis too. Yeah. But yeah, definitely probably doubles.
So it sounds like you have a similar mentality, whether it's a singles or a doubles match. You try to match the same way.
No doubt.
Awesome.
No doubt. I mean, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. You know what I mean? And everyone has their own limitations. So me knowing what those are, I feel like playing aggressive gives me the best chance in singles or doubles to be successful. And it's also the style that I can play that when I look back on the match and I execute certain things that I'd feel good about regardless of the results, you know?
Mm-hmm. We talked a bit about kind of your process of after you have a bad match, kind of how you get over it and start looking towards the future. But what are some of the things you do in the middle of a match? If you feel like maybe your serve's off, you have a couple double faults or something, or you hit a couple shots wide in a row, what's something that you do to kind of help yourself get back on track? Because I think for a lot of people, that's really where the downward spiral comes into play, is in the middle of a match.
Yeah. That's a really good question. Typically, that doesn't happen to me that much, to be honest with you. So my coach and I come up with 3 things that I'm going to focus on. And basically, our goal is for me to be at a 90% for all 3 things. So I don't really recall there's a time. I mean, I know that it happens. You're going to play bad, but my mind is literally fixated on 3 things. And if I'm doing them right, typically, if maybe I'm missing or something. Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah. I think this is the biggest thing is the 90% doesn't mean execution. The 90% means intention. If my intentions are good, that doesn't mean I have to make the shot. So I'm kind of grading myself on my intention, not the execution. It's been maybe a while that I've played just a terrible match. You know what I mean? But that's what I would go back to. I would go back to what are my three things, and are my intentions there with it? That would be the biggest thing, because that's really what you can control. Sometimes you're gonna miss. You know what I mean? Sometimes you're gonna miss.
That sounds a lot like what I try and preach with a lot of the athletes that I coach with, is being more process versus outcome focused. So only focusing or placing the majority of your focus on the process of things. So like you kind of said, like the 3 things you're doing that lead up to a specific outcome. And sometimes the outcome is not in your control. Like some things happen that are fluky or whatever, but as long as you're doing your process things, and for your kind of case, the 3 things you're doing 90% of the time, as long as you're doing those 3 things consistently, the outcomes are going to be there, maybe not 100% of the time, but pretty high percentage rate.
For sure. And I think you pinned it. I might be missing. I'm just not even realizing it, because I'm like, my intentions were there. So it doesn't ring to me as much. Maybe I am missing it more than I think, but because my intention is there, I don't like register it as bad. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
So that's maybe what it is.
Kind of going back to like, when you're not attaching so much value to it, you're not looking at things as good or bad, you're less likely to think you played bad. You're just thinking like, for sure, I did all the things I did right. It didn't happen. I didn't like this outcome. Let me try again, because it's most likely going to work the next time.
For sure. It typically the execution. I just didn't execute as well. The intention might be there, but the execution needs to be better. And that's kind of the ticket right there, figuring out how to bridge those things, you know?
Yeah. Listen, man, before we wrap up here, one thing I wanted to get your sense of, probably another really good and tough question though, is when you think about kind of all the lessons you've learned in your life about the mental side of tennis and of sports, and to, you know, some people that are in the junior ranks and looking to make the next step up, what's one kind of piece of advice you would give them for them to really focus on as it comes to the mental side of the game so they can kind of reach their end goal?
For sure. I actually answered this question a couple of days ago, so I have at least a decent idea. Is I feel like at a younger age, there's a lot of things that'll distract you. You know, like ranking points. Like I said, what people think. All those little things that you think are important, but at the end of the day, it's really not. And I think the biggest, most important thing is becoming a master, mastering yourself, becoming the best player that you could possibly be. That is the key. That will set you free, let you play free. If you realize that it's not you compared to anyone else, it's you compared to how you were yesterday. Are you mastering your game? Are you mastering your skills? Are you trying to get better? That's really the most important thing, because everything else you really have zero control over, zero. But you do have control of becoming a master. And I feel like just becoming the best you can be physically, mentally, emotionally, how are you going to do that? And I feel like those are the questions you got to ask yourself, and remember that that's what you need to be accountable, because like I said, everything else, the rankings, how this guy's doing, it doesn't matter. One, it doesn't matter. And two, you can't do anything about it. So focus on those things. And I think you'll find contentment in whatever happens with your tennis, you know?
I think those things are, like you said, the like comparing yourself to others and worry about the ranking and stuff. I think it's almost a little bit natural for humans to do it. So I think it's one hard thing that I think a lot of kids kind of struggle to fight off because it's not optimal, of course, for performance. And I think it's blown up in probably the last 5 or 10 years with the emergence of social media and all this information. So accessible to them that I can't even imagine what, you know, a 10 or 12 or 14-year-old elite athlete has to go through in their mind, where they're on Instagram or Twitter or whatever all day, and they see 1,000 other kids in the same position as them, maybe doing a bit better than them, and how hard 100%. It is to accept that and not get sucked into it.
For sure. And I think, you know, could go along with that is there's rewards. You know what I mean? You get rewarded. You get rewarded with trophies. You get rewarded with recognition. And I think people fall too much in love with those things, where the truth of it is, if you become a master, those things will be there. But those aren't what you're going for. You know what I mean? You're really you're going after mastery.
Right.
And those things will get you there. But you can't think of it the backwards. You know what I mean? You can't think of that and then, you know what I mean? It's got to be what are you going to be doing?
And the mastery isn't going to be an overnight thing either. It takes years and years.
True. For sure. So you have to love it. You have to love it, you know? That's the key. Gotta love it.
You think about if it was easy, there wouldn't only be like so many professional tennis athletes in the world. Like you think about how many people in the world play tennis and aspire to be pro, and only, you know, probably 1 or 2% of them make it. So
for sure. And there's thousands of players that are ranked, and it's just like, how many of them make it to the top? You know what I mean? And it's like, what's the difference between those guys? And you see those guys are all masters. You know what I mean? That's for me, that if you want to find a commonality with those guys, they're all masters.
Yeah.
You know?
Listen, Ruben, I really enjoyed our talk today, man. I appreciate you coming on. Hope that your family is still continuing to stay safe and everything. And hopefully, I guess the ATP Tour is going to be starting. I think they had like provisional starts in July, was it?
July 13th. That's what they said. So, I mean, hopefully everything, obviously the most important thing is everyone's healthy and everything gets back together in normal life. And then, you know, tennis comes back. But that's the date, July 13th.
Yeah, man. Hopefully, you and your family stay safe until then, and then we can see you back in the tennis courts pretty soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, brother. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.